And and and
And
and
and
welcome to this week. Welcome to this week in Worcester podcast. I am Tom Marino, editor of This Week in Worcester. I am here with John Edward Keogh. He is the executive producer of Manny J Media, the president of Hollywood Film Group, and 5 million other things.
yeah, lots of other things because that's what I do, bro.
Things you do things.
I do things. Leanne says my nickname is John Gets Jobs.
John K. Jobs.
Which is funny because it's true. Right now I'm just invading all the Worcester groups with my posts, just posting everywhere.
Just spamming the crap out of the podcast. I love it.
That's absolutely, yeah. If you're not watching this podcast at this point, you're not really. You're just like not cool. You know what I mean? It is what it
Yeah,
is.
you are kind of out of the cool kids club. I agree.
I mean, because I'm dope and you're dope, and so come hang out with us
I'm
and
not a
be
dope.
dope.
Don't call me names.
You
Um,
are dope. You're not a dope. You're just dope.
I'm a drug. Anyway,
No, bro. I
uh,
mean, oh my goodness. I gotta bring you. I gotta bring you into the. It's all right. It's all right, everybody. Don't worry about it. Tom's cool. No cap
no cap for the kids.
for the kids.
Uh, so today, first thing on our agenda, our agenda is the discussion about the vote in the Traffic and Parking Committee supporting a $25 mile per hour statutory speed limit in the city. We're going to talk a little bit about the MCAS vote in the school committee and a TIF that was approved in the last city council meeting, which is a tax break for multi-million dollars.
Right. I want a TIFF. Can I get a TIFF?
Well, I did some math on this one, so we'll talk a little simple math at the end here. But if you were not aware, a subcommittee of the City Council, the Traffic and Parking Committee, voted unanimously in what I think was a surprise to many people. It was kind of a surprise to me. Voted unanimously to support lowering the statutory speed limit from in the city of Worcester from 30 to 25. What that means is, unless otherwise posted, the speed limit would be 25 throughout the city. It would the run up to this vote. It certainly appeared like the chairperson of that committee, at large Councilor Colorio, did not support this, and then she opened the meeting by issuing a statement and her support for it. So you'd assume that those three people are going to vote for it, and seems like it would be a done deal.
Seems like
I believe the mayor is on record in support. Certainly, Councilor Tell is
yeah.
in support.
He wrote a letter with the city manager, the mayor.
All right, right. So, on the committee, the three people on the committee are Colorio, at-large Councilor King, and at-large Councilor Nguyen. So you imagine they're going to vote for it when it comes up tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Tuesday, before City Council as a whole. Obviously, Councilor Tell's for it, so there's 4, the mayor's 5. You imagine there's one other vote there.
Yeah. I think it's gonna pass.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I have I'm not professional, and I didn't turn my phone off, and it just made noise. I'm a little lukewarm on it. I'm not opposed to it. I just have some concerns about the level of enforcement there's going to be. What I don't want to see, right? So it's a whole mixed bag. This is why I'm conflicted. We don't want to see a whole bunch of new, stops and unnecessary interactions with police officers.
Right.
Sometimes they go awry. When it's deserved, of course, that's one thing. But if we're going to start yanking people over in mass, that the odds are the more you do that, something goes awry, and that isn't good. But at the same time, you can't lower the speed limit and not write anybody tickets because nobody's going to then obey, right?
Who's going to pay for the new signs?
So I think they gave a number. It wasn't a big number. It was like $38,000 for the signs. And
So
to
my
replace them. The whole cost of changing over, a lot of signs that are a lot of places that are currently posted 30 will have to be changed to 25. So that's most of the signage, I believe,
yeah.
as they're talking about. But I think the Transportation and Mobility Department gave a number of about like 38K, which
Okay,
is
I
in
mean,
government terms nothing.
that's fine if it's that. I don't have a problem with the speed limit being anything. They could lower it to 5 miles per hour. I could care less about what it is. My issue is the celebratory like victory laps being taken around the city, that this somehow solves the problem of traffic violence and of the poor driving conditions that are in the city, and it doesn't, because there's
Doesn't.
zero data, literally zero data, that speed limit drops or changes driving behavior. There's no data at all to support it. There's just as much that says it doesn't change or gets worse that it gets better, right? So there's no real studies that have been done to show you. There's a bunch of studies that they've tried to do, but none of them have been conclusive, which is why there's all these arguments. Because if you think about it, if you were going to adopt like a nationwide standard to eliminate traffic deaths, and you knew scientifically that if you reduce the speed limit across the country, you would just universally do it, right? Because you would eliminate death. But we found that that's not true. So what is it? We've talked about this a bunch of times on the show. Vision Zero has a three-pronged approach, right? So there's rule changes, reconfiguration, all that other stuff, street design, education, and then enforcement. Like there's three prongs to this thing. And the thing is that this signage change, which apparently is going to happen pretty quickly, doesn't mean that the drivers have changed their behavior or that they've learned anything. All it is that you're going to have a lot of drivers. Maybe they'll look at the sign. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why things happen the way that they happen in the city of Worcester, but not just here in Worcester. Just in, I guess, America in general, because anecdotally, I guess traffic violence just isn't as big of a problem around the world as it is here. Um, as far as deaths, like people actually dying or being maimed in the way that we've had it happen, lately. So my concern is that they would stop because they won this victory. I hope that the whole plan gets implemented, but in particular the behavioral change, the education component, teaching better driving behavior, getting people to adhere to those things, because without it, a major increase in police, there's not going to be anybody to enforce the rules. And realistically, what you said is true. Do we really want the police pulling people over all the time? Because I don't know that there's been a day in my life as a driver that I haven't seen somebody commit a crime of driving, traffic violation of some kind, whether it's and to be honest with you, I've done it. I've done it myself. I've sped. I turn right on red sometimes when I'm not supposed to. I've tailgated. I've brake checked people. I've done all those things that are bad behaviors that lead to negative consequences on driving, and I just don't know how you get all the people to change without a huge campaign to get people to change. And by the way, as we saw with the rental registry, how many people actually know this is happening? Right? Like, like I understand that it made the people who follow these things. We all know about it. We watch the city council and we watch the media that watches the city council, and we read the things that people write. But how many regular people even recognize this? How many people know that there was a statutory speed limit in the city of Worcester? Like what's the data on that? Does that make sense? So I'm hopeful that the plan gets implemented to the fullest, the way that they've talked about it. But I'm also concerned that this is just this is a symbolic victory, like many in Worcester, and it doesn't actually lead to any change.
Yeah. So the interim chief of police, whom I'll just slip in some shameless self promotion. I wrote a piece about the challenge to the current interim chief and by 3 deputy chiefs this week. It is currently on the homepage under our column section, our brandy new column section.
New column section.
Yeah, and I'm not happy in the piece. It's probably too long, but I was angry. But
I read it.
So
I read it. It wasn't that long. I read it.
Yeah, that's what I got to say about that. people should do what's best for the city, not best for them when they're in positions of, public positions. Anyway, so the chief of police says he's got 5 people he's going to transfer into the traffic division. They're going to do a period of educational stops. So like they did with distracted driving, they had a kind of a ticket moratorium, but they were still pulling people over and saying, hey, you can't do this. Hopefully that will help the education process. I don't know well, anybody that does believe that this is a fix-all, this is some magic wand, is sadly mistaken. I don't think the majority of people think that. I think the celebration is over. This was a 3-month fight or whatever. This has been going on forever now, and it's finally seems like it's going to get done. And so I think that's really what people are celebrating. Most people, or at least, well, I hope that's what they're celebrating, is that they're taking a moment to lavish in victory of a long hard fight.
Right. I also want to say this. I hope that people see that there is a negative component to that victory, and that a lot of the times politicians in Worcester only change their minds when there's negative press, and that's not good for functional government. If that's the way that things get done, that's not great. And there was, I mean, I'm not saying negative press changing people's minds is a bad thing, but I'm saying that seems to be the only way people change their minds in the city of Worcester in general. Not every single person. I wish I don't like generalizations, but what I mean is there are people who change their minds for other reasons, but most of the folks change their mind because of bad press. It seems.
I would say that press is kind of a product of, it is one component of public pressure, right? And I'm sure that there's other, ways that people are applying pressure to politicians. Look, that's kind of, I don't know. I don't get too worked up about that. I mean, people are putting pressure on for, elected representatives to support them, whether it's their mind has changed or they just get to the point where this fight isn't worth it, right? I'm going to take a bigger L on this than it's worth it. I don't know. I think that's just politics in general. I'm not going to speculate on we should be fair that Councilor Clorio I don't think ever said outright that she opposed this. But it sort of seemed that way based on, some of the holds she did and some of the tactics that she used legislatively. I don't want to outright say that it was a product of pressure. Maybe this is just the conclusion she came to and she took a little longer to get there. But, it is what it is. I mean, a lot of politics is pressure, right? When it comes from the public.
Yeah, and I like that. I do hope that it was because of constituents. That's my hope, is that there were constituents that were calling and that were pushing. Because as far as I'm concerned, I understand we can't come out and say anything because there was no public statement until recently. But I mean, as this could have been pushed through a long time ago, and it wasn't. And we did have a summer of traffic violence with people dying, but it's also something that's been on the radar for a long time. And the city manager did, with the Vision Zero plan, did propose this reduction in speed limit in the late winter earlier this year. So we can't, it's been a while. It should have been done earlier. And I do think that there was a little bit of a missed opportunity in the time that we would get to then educate drivers. Like this is the time. So this if the signs had been installed, for example, by the time the college kids returned, we could have been having these conversations with the schools and with the kids now. So now it's going to be a little bit delayed, which is, I guess in that sense, it's classic Worcester. We do things when we feel like it here.
Yeah, I mean the machine moves slowly, that's for sure.
It does. It definitely moves slowly, But I am hopeful in general because although again the people and I've seen the folks on Facebook, especially in the political Facebook groups, who just excoriate people who don't agree with the speed limit change. I don't, and you can text me and send me all the things you want. There is no science behind what you're saying. There's science behind speed changes being less deadly, for sure, right? If someone's thing's going 40 and you reduce it, it is definitely but that's not just cars, that's anything, right? There's more force with more speed. That's basic science. But there's no data that says the signage changes people's behavior. And there's no data that says ticketing changes people's behavior either. Because most of the time, people who are regularly cited for traffic violations are constant violators. So it's not like that, that eliminates people's behavior change, right? So the way that folks go about it, man, sometimes those Facebook groups just hammering people if you don't agree with the speed limit change. All I'm saying is it has to be part of a comprehensive approach if we want to have things, get better.
Yeah, I mean, as we hear often in from folks in city government, tool in the toolbox. This is a piece of the overall solution. It is not the overall solution. And, I'll just quote Mike Tyson on social media. The problem is that when you're on social media, there's nobody to punch you in the face.
That is true. Very much true. He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lukewarm on it. I'm for those that were fighting for it, I'm happy for them. They get it done. It's not something that I would have put my energy into because I don't feel that passionate about it. But to your point, if it is a piece of the solution here, good. I am certainly okay with kind of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks here at this point because the situation's a little crazy. I mean, again, a girl's family got out of Sudan and she couldn't get across Shrewsbury Street. Right. I think that's an apt analogy.
Yeah, I'd love for you to send me that data, Oliver. But because there are just as many and this is something that we've been talking about on the show over the past couple of months. There's just as many studies that show that that's not true, as is that it is true, and that's the problem. There's no comprehensive study that shows people change behavior based on signage. There's none. There's no consistent data across the country, and there's been lots of studies done, and there's just as many that show one thing as show the other. But I'd love for you to send me a study that shows universally that people change based on signage. I don't believe that you can. So
yeah, I mean, fair play to you on that. If we can get people reducing speed a few miles an hour, hopefully these as far as this is concerned alone, kind of in a vacuum, hopefully that will lead to at least less severe injuries.
Yes,
maybe some people will live.
Yeah, and it's not to say that saying that there's the data that doesn't support it. I'm not against it. I hope I have no problem with a lower speed limit in the city of Worcester. People are maniacs. We've been talking about this for the whole summer about the way people drive at that Mill Street thing. They needed to make a change because people are literally crazy. The way that they drive across Park Avenue, headed that way on Mill Street, both directions, it was just insanity. And so there had to be a major change because of the former Mill Street Highway. It was a highway for a reason. People drove like insane humans, and it caused constant fear and damage and death, and it just needed to be changed. So I'm pro lowering speed limits and changing street design. What I'm saying is that the signage itself is not the end all be all. It has to be part, in my opinion, of a comprehensive approach. Bro, what's up, bro? How many people are texting you, dude? What's going on?
I turned the thing off. I swear to God, I turned the ringer off, and it's still yelling at me. So I don't know what to say for myself. I'm too incompetent to operate my phone.
Text Tom. Everybody text Tom right now. Everybody who's got his phone number, start texting him. He's getting popular over there.
No, that's a lie. Yeah, and I mean, look, you could be on Mill Street. You cross over Park Ave, you turn from Park Ave onto Mill Street, and you come around the lake and you look down and you're doing 50 because the person behind you, because the person in front of you is doing 50 and the person behind you is doing 50, right? I mean, it was very easy to speed there. So but congrats to the people that fought for this. It seems like it's going to happen on Tuesday. I don't think there's anybody that thinks that this is going to, change the whole dynamic, but I think it's a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
We shall
see.
And
I don't think that now that this is passed, I don't think there's anybody. I don't think there was anybody who is against it now, at least publicly, right? So, I mean, most of the folks that have been against it have been, people on Facebook. Realistically, right? So you don't really see, and here's the crazy thing is that, it's weird how the dynamic works now, on whether it's on the internet or even at the, maybe the TV news level. It's almost like if somebody happens to be a prominent politician, takes a position, then the person who's on the other ideological spectrum has to take the opposite position, even when it's ridiculous. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I think I don't know that we see that in the city a ton, but we certainly see it at the federal level constantly.
It's great. It's like, oh, you like this, I'm gonna be against you automatically. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean?
I
swear, if there was a dinosaur rampage, I swear if there was a dinosaur rampage, and there was a T-Rex running down the K Street in Washington, and Nancy Pelosi came out and said, "I'm against this T-Rex," the Republicans would come out and say, "No, we're for this T-Rex," and they would. I swear that would happen. I'm convinced of it, no matter what. Same thing, vice versa. It doesn't matter what side you're on. Whoever says it first, the other person says the opposite, and it just that's why we have gridlock at most of the levels of our government, right?
I'm pro T-Rex. I don't care what party it is.
You're pro T-Rex? Really?
Yeah, we deserve nothing less.
So you should be pro T-Rex.
Moving on from T-Rex, it was an interesting vote total. I don't think that I wasn't surprised by the outcome, but I was surprised by how some folks voted on a vote before school committee on supporting the question on the ballot to eliminate MCAS as a graduation requirement. So just to be clear about this, MCAS will remain. The test will continue to be taken and be used as, for analytical purposes. But for the student, it will not be a requirement to graduate. That is the question on the ballot. The school committee took a question in, I think the item was in support of the resolution, support of the question, yes on the question. And it ended up being a 6-2 vote with 9 members.
And one person abstained, right? Or 2 people abstained?
Yes. So for once we have a vote on something of consequence that didn't break down along the 6-3 lines. It was 6-2, and the 2 was not who you'd expect. So members Guardiola and Benenda were the 2 no votes. They did not support the resolution. And member Biancaria abstained, and of course, the rest of the members voted for it. It sounded like Biancaria was going to vote against it, and then chose not to vote. But nonetheless, that's fine. It was a 6-2 vote, so pretty significant support. And the same question is brought by the mayor again. This time to City Council. It's going to be before City Council on Tuesday.
So let me come out right away and say that I am definitely for eliminating the MCAS 1 as a graduation requirement, but I'm also for eliminating the MCAS entirely. But that's a completely separate conversation. I find it interesting that this vote was taken, that the mayor brought this vote and found it even more interesting. And I'm surprised at this point in this state that it's taken this long to get to where we're at. Again, you and I talk a lot about fact-based reporting, right? So the MCAS has been a graduation requirement since 1999. It was originally proposed in 1993 as part of the right. Is that 93 was originally?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
And it was I think it was Tom Henderson, State Senator Tom Henderson was the guy who wrote it, who was a longtime teacher, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, and so if you have to understand Massachusetts, like state history and state politics to even understand the MCAS, but the MCAS was a 2-part response to the Massachusetts School Reform Act that was passed in 1992, and it was attached to the tough on crime, the truth in sentencing law. So this was Bill Weld's time. So post Dukakis, there was 2 major reform packages that were kind of sent through that Weld was against, and then he was for. Which, if anybody who followed Governor Weld, he was the greatest flip flopper in the history of the universe. Right. So, but the reason that it even happened was because of a lawsuit by the city of Brockton at the time in their school system against the city of Brookline because of state funding that was being sent to Brookline schools that wasn't commensurate with the money that was being sent to the Brockton public schools. And then a bunch of towns, cities on there, including Worcester, got on board and sued a bunch of the other municipalities. And then the lawsuit actually advanced. This is way back in 1992. You can go look this up. There's actually a website. It's like Massachusetts school history or whatever. You can look up and read all this stuff. But anyways, the lawsuit got past the first level, which was the first time that had happened. In relation to school funding. And so there was this big reaction at the time, and they passed this Reform Act with the idea that funding was going to be handed out proportionally, right, to schools whose testing scores, right, were lower than others. So if you had a lower score, they were going to send you more state dollars, and if you had higher scores, they were going to reduce it. And the idea was that it was going to balance out the socioeconomic advantages that are had for schools that already had a lot of money or had affluent towns, right? Like Brookline versus Brockton. Okay, so, but there was another component, and that we forget about all the time, and that was used to be a test which we all took if you're our age, called the NEAP, which was it was like the Northeast aptitude, the aptitude placement test or something like that. But that was a regional test that was taken. And then there was a national version, if you remember, in 10th grade. So there was like an 8th grade test and then a 10th grade test. And then they decided to make a state level test. And almost every state around the country has some version of a placement standardized test. Okay. It was designed in the late 80s and early 90s, and then put in place as a graduation requirement in the early 2000s, and it has been in existence for 24 years. It has no data to support it that it in of itself indicates whether or not someone should graduate from high school. One. Two, there have been thousands, literally, of exceptions to the rule. So when someone fails the test, there's a process for them to go back and take different versions of the test or different things that can get them past that. So it's very rare that someone has been held back in the first place. So it's a toothless tiger, so to speak. But the problem that we were trying to solve about school funding levels still to this day remains a problem. So it doesn't, and I'm not saying that committee member Guardiola is saying this, because I wanted to talk about it more specifically, but I'm going to be more general in this. The MCAS test has no data to support it as leading to better educational outcomes, and it has no data to support it that someone who passes it necessarily goes on to a better educational life. What we do have, though, is data that says people who score lower almost always score lower for the same reason we put the test in place, which is socioeconomic factors, right? That is a fact. And by the way, the study was commissioned originally about that by former Republican governor Mitt Romney, who asked, hey, how is this test doing, when he was governor? And then eventually was carried through the Deval Patrick administration and then the Charlie Baker administration. It was a very comprehensive, almost 13-year analysis of the test data that shows that the students are not necessarily smarter than others. They're often dealing with more pressure. So if you come to school with less resources, you don't get as good of a score. And if you're surrounded,
can you imagine?
Shocker! Like that's like a shocker. Like they're blown away. So then we still tie these students down to a high pressure test that we now know, and is very accepted across the board, whether conservative or liberal, that testing in and of itself does not indicate intelligence. It just indicates the ability to take the test. And most of the time with teenagers, it's because of practice, right? So the kids who have parents who can pay for them to get test prep, and they can get tutors and study guides and all that other stuff that you can get, or the school districts that can do the same thing, those students succeed at the test. Whereas in school districts that are lesser funded, They don't succeed at the test because of the same thing. So the control group, the actual science of measuring a control group versus a non-control group has shown the test has literally no factor in it at all that shows an indication of a student's educational success outcome. The point of school is to prepare the student to be better within the educational success outcome algorithm or whatever you want to call it. And it doesn't do that, which was why we thought it would, was what we thought it would do back then, which we were wrong. 30, 40 years ago, we were wrong about the test. And so we need to replace it. Okay, I talked too much, but last thing. Both Alex Gariola and his former boss Tim Murray at the Worcester Chamber of Commerce and many others in that group have said there's nothing there's no plan on what to do to replace it. And let me tell you, that's the wrong thinking. You don't need another test. You need equity in resources. That is the number one factor in every single state in the United States of America, in every municipality, in every county, every college. When you provide equitable resources in education, you get similar outcomes in education levels. Isn't that amazing? It's mind-boggling. By the way, there's a really cool test, a really cool study that was done at the worldwide level. It turns out the same can be said for the entire world. If you invest in kids and their education, you know what happens? Turns out they're all smart. It's ridiculous, Tom. It's crazy. We all know this. We all, even adults, we suck at test taking. 90% of us stink at tests, but that doesn't mean that those tests need to be in place to show progress. What shows progress is often everything else, right? So, Princess. Hey, Princess. Princess is checking in from New York. She's a big-time real estate agent out in New York City. She's awesome. Her son's a director. And that it's just a fact. The more resources, the better the kids' outcomes. All right, so I yelled a lot for no reason, and because we probably agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against necessarily a test continuing. I'm for it not being a graduation requirement. I don't think that's how you should evaluate a kid's readiness for graduation. I think from year to year, for a school to judge its own progress, it might be useful in some ways. And to see how schools compare across the state, I think it might be useful. But as for the individual student, no, I think it's useless.
Interestingly enough, in this school committee, if you go back just a couple weeks in the evaluation of the superintendent, one of the things that you've saw criticized from the voting bloc that seems to be against the superintendent was the third grade reading scores. Which, by the way, the third grade reading scores for almost 60 years has been an indicator of future success. It's related to reading comprehension, right? And there's this particular test that they've been administering. And when you see that test low, which in Worcester schools, we've had some low scores for a period of time, particularly post-COVID times for third graders, that usually indicates difficulty for those students to advance through the levels up to high school. Okay, but we also know that investing resources in those same students, so extracurricular activities, homework mitigation, one-on-one teaching, that you can correct that. That's a scientifically correctable thing, which we have proof of, evidence of. So it's interesting that the same people, or at least the same thought group, because Kathy Roy voted to eliminate the requirement, the same thought group was critical of those test scores, and then thinks that that's an indicator. So where I don't understand the disconnect between the two, because the third grade test is not a graduation requirement, right? But we know that it has value. So how do you balance the value of testing And by the way, those third grade tests, those are like written comprehension. Have you ever? I remember being a young kid and taking that test back then and not knowing what I was writing. I was like, like some of the stuff you're doing in there, you just don't really know, because you're a third grader. How many third graders? But then often it's an indicator for like someone who's brilliant. Like, so when people would do well at that test, they would start moving them into AP classes, and they would kind of have them going in a different direction, and then they would invest resources in the other kids, which we have shown leads to future success. We got the data.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think the result was the right one. I know Alex a little bit. Great guy. Don't particularly like his vote on this, but at the same time, it wasn't very consequential. It was a pretty overwhelming support for the.
Yeah, it's just a symbolic vote, but.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen any polling on it, so I'm just guessing. I think it's going to. I mean, if I had to guess, if I was going to bet on it, I think it's going to pass. It seems like there's a lot of support.
I haven't seen anybody come out really strongly against it. I mean, this has been like a rolling thunder of a talk for many times. But so now Tom Henderson, the state senator who originally wrote this thing, and he was a principal and a teacher for a long time out in Western Mass. There's an article that he wrote about this change that he's still defending the test, right? And his perspective is from this idea that we need to have some kind of achievable goal for kids to aim for them to want to graduate. Right?
Every kid want to graduate?
But that's the thing, is that he's viewing it through that standardized platform thing, because that's kind of how he learned, and that's how we did for many, many years. But at this point, we have the data. We have generational data that says that those standardized tests don't indicate anything. They just indicate whether a kid is poor or not, which is like, that's mind-boggling, but it's very, very true. It also indicates like malnutrition, and what they usually do in those schools, right, is the first thing they start doing is they start figuring out how to feed the kids, because often when you're not fed well and you go to school and then you have a test that is like a high pressure test, you know what happens? You know what happens under those tests? When you haven't eaten breakfast, you don't do well on the test. Oh my goodness gracious, right? So then when they invest in the free school lunch program, which I know a bunch of people are against, the free breakfast and the free school lunches, do you know what that led to? Better educational outcomes. Because
I just don't. That's the thing. No, we don't want kids to eat.
Right, but we're gonna have them in school for 6 to 8 hours. What are you talking about? Of course they need to eat. And yes, some kids have more resources before they get to school than others. So all we're doing is mitigating that by giving them food. It's not that hard. It's not that difficult. It's stupid to suggest. And for anybody to say that's something that we never did before, you're lying. You're literally lying, because the history of the United States had kids going to school and getting an apple and all the other stuff. You want to go back to the little red schoolhouses. By the way, that was not as common as the Ion channel likes to make you think. If you watch some of these like old school shows, the Little House on the Prairie and all this other stuff. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Anyways, I don't even want to go down that road because I'm going to lose my mind. But what I'm saying is that we know that there is a track record worldwide of nutrition being related to good educational outcomes. So why would we be against that? Why would we be against that? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a big proponent of universal programs. Like, how about we all just give all the kids access to school lunches, and then we, what do we have to have this means tested stupidity for? Let's just pay for the food for the kids.
Yeah, just give them milk. Like, what's wrong with milk? Like, it doesn't make no sense. And by the way, now I'm not saying give them. Now they did also do mistakes in the food that they gave them. So for years they were giving them bad food, and now they've moved to like a more nutritious based package. And oh my God, in the schools where you give more nutritious food, do you know what happens? Better attendance rates, better graduation rates, higher test scores, because they're eating food. It's hilarious. Oh my God. And the food that they're eating is good for them. Do you remember that thing, an apple a day keeps the doctor away? It turns out science. It turns out that's science. Give them food.
Yeah, imagine like if you have nutrients to nourish your brain,
it's
then it works better.
Oh, it blows my mind that people.
Yeah, if you don't think that that's true, just try not eating for a day and see what that does to your brain.
But also, then if you look at the studies where people like start to like fight back with studies, often those studies are biased. They're not. They have no control groups, right? And so and it's really hard to have a control group when you're using a school that has all the resources in the world, right? So like if you in right here in Worcester, if you compare St. John's, which is one of the most resource heavy schools in the
universe.
In the universe, guess what? Those kids have their graduation rate is pretty dang high because they got a lot of resources. When you look at schools that don't have as much resources, what do you find? Less graduation, and it's really not that hard. It's really not that hard, guys. I hate the politicization of school, and yes, I understand there are some reasons to criticize public schooling, and maybe if they're gonna teach in one direction versus another, and that's fine. But and maybe how you train teachers, that's another thing. We could talk about that. Those are good questions to have, but it shouldn't be from a like a bipolar political perspective. It should be more about, hey, how do we make the best environment for these kids, and how do we allow them to succeed and get the F out of the way, right? Because that's not it's not like, what the heck, man. And I, my background is one of faith, and I get it. I get some of the things that people say, but if you're already starting off by rejecting the kid getting an extra milk, right? We can't have a legitimate conversation about the things that are being taught if you won't at least give them cereal. Like, give them cereal, bro. Like, I mean, here you go. Like, have some Wheaties, man. Here's a milk and some Wheaties, and then we can talk about whatever is being taught in second period English. Like, we can have that conversation afterwards. It's ridiculous. Oh,
and then
man.
we can have a mental breakdown because there's a gay character in one book ever.
That's a long. It's just I mean, dude. By the way, I don't know if anybody knows this, right? The history of America. When you ban books in any capacity, you know what happens? People read them more. So if you say I don't want people to read that book, you're literally asking them to read it. That's like the history of the United States. That's what we do here. And by the way, that's universal ethnically. Like, so we got whatever ethnic group you come from. When someone says don't read this, right? It turns into people reading it. In fact, if you want to go back to one of the greatest examples, Frederick Douglass, right? He wasn't allowed to read, and then when someone let him read, he became what? One of the greatest orators in the history of the world. But first he had to like sneak around to read in the middle of the night. It's crazy. When you give people the ability to educate themselves, guess what happens? They do it. They like to read. So like telling them not to do that, it makes no sense. Just read it. If you have an issue with the outcome of the book, that's a different conversation. So then present information to the person that it presents your view. But don't say to them they can't read the view. Just let them read it. And then if your thing is right, if you believe in it so much and so strongly, then present that thing to them. And then you'll have a better conversation. And we won't have as much arguing and yelling at each other.
We haven't yelled at each other in like 3 episodes, and I don't like it. We need to find something.
So you want to do a Bible study together in the next episode? Because then we could get going, right? We could do Leviticus. I'm down. Let's do Leviticus 23, bro. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's not.
I'm down.
Look, I respect people of faith. I think it has strength to have faith, and it's just not a strength I have, and it's just not. It's weirdly, and I mean this so much. I just don't care. Like, I don't. How did we get here? I don't care. What happened if you die? I don't care. I don't care. I'm trying to do my thing.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me about. I don't care.
I care about you. I care.
I didn't say I don't care about you. I just meant like I don't. All of these existential questions, I don't like. People are dying. This is what I always say to people. People are dying because they can't afford healthcare in this country. Stop talking to me about Jesus. I don't care.
Well, I understand that. I don't know that those two things are directly connected, but believe me, one of my long-term plans is to bring you with me to heaven. So,
and let me just I just want to qualify that. I'm not blaming that on Jesus. I'm not blaming Jesus for anything. What I'm saying is, it's just not a question that I want to spend time contemplating. It's just not of interest to me.
No, I understand, and I don't have an issue with so like as you know, I get plenty. So it's interesting, right? I don't, I've heard about cancel culture. It hasn't happened to me, right? I've been able to talk about my faith in a public space very much, both here with you, with Manny, in the movies, lots of places. And I find that the folks that I do know who have been canceled and not allowed to talk about it. Look at you got Princess going now. It's on now, Tom. But listen, the folks that I find that don't get to talk about those things, often it's related to how they talk about, not necessarily what they're talking about, right? And if you look in the, I'm not trying to blast anybody's particular position out of space, but if you go ahead and look at the world and the way it works, I there's an entire media industry related to the propagation of faith, and I don't see that that's stopping anytime soon. In fact, I know filmmakers who are exclusively Christian and work within that infrastructure. You look at Angel Studios with the folks that are doing The Chosen. It's literally the fourth most successful studio in the world right now, as far as distribution and revenue and people watching it. So I find it hard to believe when people say that they're not allowed to talk about their faith. I understand that there's certain conversations that have become difficult because you can't talk about it in a way that invites other people in, or that you're not willing to hear them out, right? And so I don't know what it's like to be canceled, because maybe I haven't tried to cancel anybody else. I guess maybe that's what it is. And it's not to say that I want everybody to agree with me either. I can stand on my conviction without forcing you to have the same conviction as me, right? Like, you don't have to have the same one.
Yeah. Like, that's also something I don't get is people get all uptight when people start talking about their faith. Like,
by the way, Princess is right. Jesus does love you very much. He does. He likes you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. No, I mean, look, it doesn't upset me. I don't get upset. Plenty of people in my life that are into the Jesus or other religions or whatever. It's just, for me, it's just not something I want to have. I want to take any time.
Whoa, Jose Rivera checking in right there. With the
Jesus. It's just not something that I have any interest in spending any energy contemplating. I don't care. Not that I don't care. I don't need to to theorize on the beginnings of the world, or what happens at the end of it, or any of that. It's just not of interest to me. I know that's an odd position, but it's the truth.
So you don't want to do post-millennial versus pre-millennial on the show? That's not what we're doing here? No?
Yeah, no. Let's get back on topic here. 340 Main Street. And this is just
yes. Tax incentives.
Yeah. I love giving away tax money. So I did a little math, and I'm not necessarily picking on this product in particular, but we're so eager to build housing here, and then we give these multi-million-dollar tax breaks to places that are all market rate. So I did a little math, right? I just used what was in the item that was before City Council when they voted on this TIF last week. So there's a $81 million investment, and they're not going to do any market capped or affordable capped unit, right, which means they have to pay into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund because of inclusionary zoning. So 81 million plus they're paying 2.4 into the trust fund, right? And the difference between what they would have paid without the TIF, that's 14 million, and what they end up paying is 8 million in change. 14.5 and 8.8, right? They're going to pay the 8.8 with the TIF. And it's 300 and some units, right? And so they gave the current market rates in that document, and I used their rates times number of units, figured it all out. That place is going to generate $8 million a year gross, with all the rents that's being paid, and we're giving them a $5 million, five and change tax break. That's the difference between just those numbers. Now, I know that there are many other expenses that go into this, but just using those numbers, the tax numbers, what they're paying into the trust fund, and the $81 million investment, that changes their payoff date from 12 and a quarter years to 11 and a half years. You're telling me that project can't happen without them getting that $6 million? Nonsense! Absolute nonsense. It's just giving $6 million away.
Yeah,
because they asked for it.
No, I'm with you, and also again, and this goes back to, I mean, this is not just on the developers of real estate and on the other businesses that invest in the city and on like major corporations like Spectrum. These companies are telling you that the only way they'll do business with us is if they treat us like garbage and we give them money. Right. So this company didn't even show up to the meeting because apparently not a single person ever doesn't have a Tuesday night off. Like they said it was a scheduling conflict. That was the report that that they couldn't make it because there was a scheduling issue. Really? That doesn't make any sense to me, that not one person could make it from the entire company, which turns out is a pretty decent sized company. And again, the city of Worcester, this is just for anybody, whether you're an elected official, whether you're a candidate for being an elected official, businesses will treat you exactly how you let them treat you.
Yep.
That they will treat you exactly how.
Let me take that a step further.
Sure.
There is no such, for a municipality, there is no such thing as a corporate partner. Doesn't exist. Especially big business that has investors, they have a legal obligation to maximize the return on investment. They are there to just make as much money as possible. They don't give money to charity out of goodwill. They do it for marketing. They don't establish these funds to, do, what am I trying to think of for college? Help me out. When you get money to go to college.
A grant, like
scholarship. Yeah, they don't have these scholarship funds because they're good people. Because it's not about being good people. It's about they have a legal obligation to maximize return on investment. There is no such thing as a corporate partner. They are not there to do goodwill.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So this is the conversations that we have on a regular basis. The people, for example, the sponsors for Manny J Media, although they're all personal people that I know, right? So that we have worked with and we've created deals with, they also see the value in investing in the company because of the marketability of Manny and of the platform and of those things. They give money not because they just want to hand a check to Manny, although Manny's pretty cool. They're giving us money because he's pretty cool. He's my boy. Cool. That's my homeboy, right?
I'm saying.
They're not giving it to him because they like him. They're giving it to him because they see the work that he's doing and they see it as having value. And so that value is a return to their business. And so how do you get the big businesses to pay attention to you? And this is just something that's happening for me, for you, for This Week in Worcester, for some of the stuff that we're doing together and some of the bigger projects that are happening. You get them to pay attention to you and invest in you when you can return to them at least the same or more than what you're saying right there, the return on investment is. So the only time you get money is when they want to make more money. It's just the way it is.
Well, and I think the dynamic's much different in like a local business or a business that is still owned by like either a couple partners or like that's owner operated or their owners are really close to the actual operation. But I'm talking about when you have these people that own the hotels that are so controversial right now that WPI is going to buy.
Yeah.
Though it's some company from New York. They don't care about what's there at all.
They don't care at all. They
may not be able to pick it out on the map.
By the way,
they probably only heard of it because they have property here. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. So like, I can't think of a good example. Like Nothing's coming to mind off the top of my head, but like a business that's here, people that are from here that do stuff in the community, that's different, right? That's a whole different ball of wax. I'm talking about business that is big money, that has investors who may not even know that they have that property here, right? They don't care. They just want they give them money because they want more money back, and that's it.
And again, this goes back to our conversation about the secret elite government here in the city of Worcester. Everybody wearing their robes and with their special. I swear they have a special handshake. I know they. I'm going to find out what the special handshake is.
I just want to know that they're doing the powdered wig thing, and then I can support it.
I think they drink a certain drink. No, I'm just kidding. So I got like a whole skit I want to do on that. Like I should do a skit. But anyways, what I'm saying is that I saw what Pete Dunne said, and Pete said basically this is what the company said they would do it for, and the tone, the approach that he took for it is like, the only way we're going to get this property to move is if we do this now, and otherwise there's going to be like a period of time, X amount of time, when the property won't get moved, right? Like that's the kind of thing. But that's the thinking that I really want people to break away from. And maybe there's a new way to do things with those, maybe the local people that you're talking about. But as a small business owner myself, and a part owner of 2 other businesses, I find myself not even thinking I could do something like that, because it's going to get handed to some big company and they're going to get a check for millions of dollars. And then the housing trust fund money, I think they're paying in 2.4 million as part of this deal. It's 2.4 million.
Well, no, that's what they're obligated under the
and then we made yet another exception for them not to have to do any affordable housing, right? They pay into the fund.
No. So they're paying into the. You either have to do the affordable units, or you pay into the fund. You can buy out. You can basically buy out the affordable units.
So this really strikes me as stupid, because how are we ever going to change affordable housing in the city if we just allow them to just pay off a number? And then what do we use that trust fund money for? To offset people's rents? Are people getting reductions in their rents around the city for that?
It's going to no. Wynn got some of that money for, I forget which property, one of their properties.
Wynn got money?
Yep. Let's not go there again.
People are gonna go at you on Twitter on Hank Stoll's show on Wednesday because you can't say anything about former city manager Mike O'Brien, Tom. Don't you dare say anything about former city manager Mike O'Brien and his connection to wind companies. No, don't you do that. Don't.
Well, that was Tom, that's somebody. The person who made that comment is somebody you know very well.
Tom.
Hey, just to put it in context here, so it's going to be 80. I believe it's 80 studios. What Peter Dunne in this document that they sent the city council to get to vote on the TIF. 1783 is the going rate. So 1 bedroom 2040, 2 bedroom 2925, 3 bedroom 3780.
It's crazy. By the way, that's
no one that lives here can afford that.
Not only that, so that's in District 4. So it's on Main Street, 340 Main Street. It's District 4. It's not far from where I live at Irving Street, which, by the way, is maybe, this stinks, and this is for people who know District 4. District 4 is probably one of the lower rent prices in the city, but there's started to be a creep on those rents, right? So, I live in a subsidized housing unit myself, and I was very lucky. For those of you who don't watch the show, but I was homeless about 6 years ago, and I got into a program basically because somebody died. So a person died, I was on a list, and I got into this subsidized program. And because of COVID, it got extended. So I've been able to have the same rent level for almost 6 years. And but there is a cap of time, and they're kind of negotiating that cap because of the pause of what happened during COVID, right? So I got lucky because it's federally subsidized, but even at the federally subsidized level, the rent is starting to increase, right? And so then market rate apartments that are directly around me, if I wanted to stay in the same neighborhood, and so like kind of across the street from me is the Chatham Apartments. A studio apartment in that building is $1,200 for a studio, and it's like, that's
dirt cheap.
It's
these
not
days.
cheap.
No, that's dirt cheap these days.
Oh, that's dirt cheap compared to the rest of the city. That's very, very scary. Yeah. And then now the reporting requirements, so like your credit check and your credit score and all these other things become more and more difficult, right? It's like it's hard to, if you are unless you're coming from a position of affluence, it's really difficult to get an apartment. But by the way, if you don't have good credit, the princess says that's cheap. She's checking in from New York City with, where there's a bathroom that costs, $4,000 a month or something like that.
Well, she said when I read the rents out, she said it's almost like New York.
It's getting higher and higher. Where Worcester's skyrocketing all over the place. So this building is just going to affect the market rates that are already studios for this. We have some studios in the city of Worcester for 1,700. So
that's what our economic development director, I think his title is, put in this document that studios, they're doing 80 studios, and he said the average rent $1,783. The market rate is $1,783 right now,
which is insane. That's the market rate. Like, market for who? Because the salaries are not going up in the city. Not even close. And we're starting now. I don't know if you've been following the stock market, but for those of you who do follow the stock market, we're starting to see the first job losses related to AI. And that's what no one really expected, that it would happen this fast. And so there's been a huge pressure.
Nobody expected it.
So everybody loves AI on Wall Street. Everybody loves AI in Hollywood. They all love AI, but we regular people knew that AI was going to crush jobs. And so with those revised numbers that, were the controversy at the federal level just a couple of weeks ago, those were almost all related to AI jobs. I don't know if you remember, but the guy at OpenAI, he had said, we're going to have what was it called? A prompt engineer. We were going to have all these people retrained to teach ChatGPT how to do stuff, which is really, really funny. And then now it's starting to become a controversy. A lot of schools are having trouble with kids using AI, and just a lot of stuff going on. And then, of course, speaking of Amazon, the factory in the middle of the city that was supposed to open, that we were supposed to, have a bunch of jobs come, it's been 2+ years now. Just sitting there, just hanging out.
I think that's happening though. Didn't they announce that? I think they announced it's going to open before this holiday season.
So the Charlton one is supposed to come online first, and then the Worcester one is supposed to be second, and that's what it is. But I don't know. We have hundreds and hundreds of people watching the show now. Do any of you guys work for Amazon? Does anybody know? Does anybody anybody driving?
So it was a while ago now. I thought I had it, that they were not coming, and then so I thought I had it nailed down, and then I called them, and both their PR person in Seattle, and they have a local contractor here, were emphatic that they were like, yes, we are discontinuing some projects. That is not one of them. That one is going to stay in the plan. We're just not sure when.
Right.
So, that doesn't mean they were, that those people are being told what other people want them to say, but they were very strongly, no, that is not being taken out of the plan. So it is supposedly going to happen.
By the way, anybody in the chat that's watching it that happens to be a small, medium, or large business owner, Tom and I are always looking for sponsors for This Week in Worcester, and some of the other projects that we have that are connected, that, what they're doing? They are investing in the city of Worcester, locally here. We're looking to, expand on different things. There's the new columns section on thisweekinworcester.com that you can check out, that Tom can rant and rave on. And then there's also the new Hollywood news section, which is a partnership between me and Tom, where we talk about local, Hollywood news. And you know what Tom and I don't do? We don't use AI to write anything. We write it ourselves. We write it ourselves. So, if anybody wants to, Jose,
I do not know when
the date of when they're going to start.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They just did the TIFF this past Tuesday.
Yeah, so they just threw them, $5 million on Tuesday. So I'm sure.
It's over like 15 years, but it's just like we're freaking out about
2030
in the same meeting. Yeah, in the same meeting, we're freaking out about like potentially 1.7 a year to WPI because they had the audacity to buy buildings that previous leaders did not protect against exactly this. chose not to because that'd be quote anti-business. You know, we're freaking out about that, but we just gave these guys $55 million over 15 years. And again, it's a difference of 9 months, right? That $5 million is 9 months of revenue for them. It's just ridiculous. They need that, or it's, you know, or it's going. The project can't happen. An $80-90 million project can't happen over $5 million.
So the thing that really is striking is that we just had this big controversy over the two hotels that are going to take $1.7 million off the books, and we're handing $5 million to somebody else. How does that make sense? How can the same administration and the same group of people on one hand complain in their secret robes and chants and special handshakes? How do they complain on this hand, right? And then on this hand, hand millions of dollars to this developer that has to do it. Otherwise, we're not going to get this project off the ground. This is exactly why people feel disconnected from the political process in the city of Worcester, and we can't get more than 23, 24, 25% people to vote. I just was at the primary elections. I was an election inspector on Tuesday. Absolute record low voting at the library location. We had 38 total votes. 38 total votes on a beautiful day, perfectly sunny skies, all nice and beautiful in the library. You can come hang out. They have good coffee, and they have all kinds of cool resources. Plus, you can buy comic books for like $2 in the little store. And nothing. No one wants to vote. No one wants to participate locally in the process. And I'm convinced, Tom, and we talk about it all the time, but people look at deals like this, and the city and the city administration and the political class think the people are stupid. You just wrote a letter, a public letter, and made a big shame statement against the WPI. And again, I'm not saying that return right-wing lewds like Tim Pool. Oh yeah, the Tim Pool thing, man. That's just, man, those guys.
Let's not go there.
I'm not even gonna. It's not even a waste. It's a waste of my time. You could, but so what I'm saying is, when you do have media like us who try to do the right thing, you have these two situations happening literally at the same time. The letter was just 10 days ago. The letter from the EDCC that was published in the Guardian, sight unseen, right, without any hand check rails.
And half of us, including me, were like, "Who the hell is these people?"
Who's the EDCC, right? You know what I mean? So they didn't even tuck their robes away in the closet before they wrote that letter, and then they hand millions of dollars to this other, corporation who did not send a representative to be at the meeting. So they slap us in the face, Tom. They really do. They slap us in the face.
I don't have any problem. I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem.
You don't mind getting slapped around? Bang, bang,
no. I don't care if they didn't send anybody. That really should have no effect on the decision. The decision should be.
I have to tell you, T-Rex is not happy about this. He does not like the fact that we are not. I don't know how he's doing that. He's moving on his own. I don't know what's happening.
I think it's time to wrap this up. Do you have a stupid question for the week?
It's not. Hold on a second. Hold on. Time out. For those of you who don't know, and if you've been following, and those of you who are fans of the show, by the way, we have fans of the show that are on Team John. Apparently, that's like 95% of the people are on Team John. Then there's 5% of the people on Team Tom, right? We're going to have Team John and Team Tom t-shirts coming out soon, eventually, right? So here's the deal.
I love to be
at the end of every week, the best part of the show is I ask Tom a question about, something that is his favorite, right? And it started off as sweet things. We did dessert for a while. We did candy. We've done bread. Last week was coffee or tea, right? Coffee or tea. We did favorite vegetable a couple, weeks ago. I was going to ask him his favorite juice, but I had a pineapple juice. Leanne brought me pineapple juice. But today I'm going to ask something completely different.
Uh-oh.
Tom Marino, what goes in your peanut butter sandwich with peanut butter? Jelly or fluff?
Oh, no, not fluff. Jelly all day.
Jelly all day? Jelly all day? You're not a fluff another guy?
I don't need more sugar in my other sugar sandwich.
Oh, so okay. What kind of jelly? If we're gonna talk jellies, what kind of jellies? Are you a jelly guy?
Yeah, I'm a PBJ, as Leanne says.
We woke Leanne up. She was sleeping the whole show. Now she pops in with the PBJ.
Yeah, but she came up with the most important thing said between anybody involved today, which is PBJ.
Which kind of J? What is the J? Which J is it? And for those of you who are listening, check in the chat with your favorite jelly, or if you like Fluffernutter, which is what a normal Massachusetts resident would like. Jose's in with grape jelly.
Yeah, so I can do grape or strawberry. Probably grape more often, but I mean, like sometimes I like to mix it up. I do a fair amount of PBJ.
Fair amount. Mix it up from time. So there was a time in my life I used to be on a marmalade kick because of Paddington Bear. So I would do PB and marmalade.
Weird.
It'll change your life. PB and marmalade. Right? Does everybody remember Paddington Bear? Did anybody have a bear with a raincoat?
I just want to give a quick shout out to the organizers of the Worcester Pride event yesterday. I was over there with
cranberry.
Cranberry. I don't know that.
Cranberry jelly. I've had cranberry jelly. It's pretty good.
Want to give a quick shout out to the organizers of Worcester Pride yesterday. They did a phenomenal job organizing that thing. We had a table over there related to my other effort outside of This Week in Worcester for working toward charter review in the city. You can learn more about that at betterworcester.org. You can learn. Why are you going to talk over my tag? You can learn more about that at betterworcester.org.
How did I not know about your table?
Well, you there?
No, Manny was there. But if I had known about your table, I would have gone over there to see you and harass you. That's bull, man, right there. I think we should vote in the chat right now before we go. Was Tom mean to me by not telling me that he had a table for me to go visit?
I didn't see Manny. I saw a bunch of people, but I didn't see Manny.
Maybe Manny covered it live, bro.
I'm sure he did. I just didn't run into him. They closed 4 streets for God's sakes, or 3 streets.
He covers everything live. You know the crazy thing is he covered the Nipmunk powwow in Holden in the morning, and then drove back and covered the Pride thing. So nice. Manny just all over the place on Saturday. Absolutely all over the place.
Yeah, no, they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
The music isn't my thing, but I'm a curmudgeon, so don't let that make you let you judge based on my horrible music opinions. But overall, I mean, they did a great job. From loading in, and there was just people at all 4 corners of the common ready to tell you where to go and what to do. And that's cool. They were great.
So, hey, real quick, on Wednesday, if anybody is around the Pleasant Street area at 167 Pleasant Street, where there's a group doing the Pleasant Street Food Truck Series for every Wednesday in September. So go down there, get some local food and food truck action. But in particular, I can't help but shout out Matilda's Kitchen, who has been a loyal watcher and listener of our show from since we went live. Matilda's Kitchen is amazing. So go get yourself some Honduran food, and with Puerto Rican flavors. Oh my goodness, life changing. And yeah, he was at Rick Gillen's party later on that night. Manny was hitting everything on Saturday night. Yeah.
So thanks to Mr. Jose Rivera and Princess and Leanne, and if I'm missing anybody else who commented, and Oliver.
And Oliver
comments. We do this every Sunday. We try to be on by about 8:30. I can't say that we're always successful, but we do this every Sunday.
We do.
And you are welcome to join us and chime in.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Anything else?
I'm cooler than you. That's it.
That's a controversial statement. Shave, dude. Shave.
This gnome agrees with me. This gnome. So
we will try to screw it up less next week.
Absolutely. We have a whole city council meeting to talk about next week. Woo-hoo!
Yeah, hopefully this one is in 17 hours like the last one.
Hopefully go 2 a.m.
This was a thing. They can't. They're by rule. They have to end at midnight.
Oh man. Screw it up less. Hashtag screw it up less.
Yep, we will try and screw it up less next time.
Right.
All right. That's enough shenanigans this week in Worcester. On behalf of my partner in Gab, John Edward Kia,